Mankind doesn't need warfare and bloodshed to prove itself. Everyday life can provide honour and valour. And let's hope that from now on this country can find its heroes in smaller places. Quoted to John Smith from this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the two-parter Human Nature and the Family of Blood, written by Paul Cornell and directed by Charles Plummer. We'll also be tackling the story Shadow of a Doubt, written by Paul Cornell, a short little audio thing that was released on YouTube a year back. Now, this story was actually originally a 7th Doctor novel for the Virgin New Adventures. And this story is I wouldn't say word for word, but it's a complete adaptation. We've had stories before, like Dalek, which were semi-adaptations, like you can still imagine these being in the same universe, but this is the first time the series has done a full-on adaptation. What does this mean in the larger content of Doctor Who? Does this establish that the Virgin New Adventure line is officially non-canonical? Well, seeing as the BBC still hasn't had an official chronology yet, and stories connected with this would later establish that both events are semi-true, then no, it does not prove that the previous adventure is now non-canonical, because they adapted it for TV form with a completely different Doctor and crew. Paul Cornell had proven himself in Series 1 with Father's Day being one of the best stories written for that series, and Russell T Davies was a huge fan of this novel. Many people were. It was one of the most popular stories of the Virgin New Adventures, and somehow they got the rights, they got this together to adapt it onto TV form. And not only that, but as a two-parter. And this would be a very memorable story in terms of the canon. It introduces a lot of concepts, like the Comenial Arch, which will play a much bigger role at the end of the series and in Series 12, oddly enough. And so, this story tackles with a lot of elements and a lot of canonically, because we're tackling with a story they don't mention it, like this story has happened again with the Doctor, but the fact that it has happened to the Doctor is sort of important to the chronology, stating that if these two stories can coexist within the same franchise, why can't any other versions, double versions can? So that's really cool in a sense. Paul Cornell has proven himself, like I said, and they got to make this. Charles Plummer, he had proven himself throughout Series 3, and so this was a very highly anticipated Doctor Who story. And this was the one which was up for so many awards. This story almost won the best drama of that year, but was beaten by yet another Doctor Who episode in this series. That is just incredible. And the fun fact about this is that Paul Cornell was also up for an award for Father's Day, but he lost to another episode of Doctor Who, and they were both written by the same writer. How nuts is that? And we'll get onto that when we talk about the next Doctor Who story, but there it is for now. So there you go. This is the vanilla release, which I have on DVD. It also comes with the episode Blink, but because that's a singular episode, and comparing the stories, this obviously is the bigger adventure. Sadly means that it kind of gets forgotten on the DVD. And like always, I've printed out my own DVD cover. This is from Christopher Doctor Who DVD covers. You can just look it up online. Very great artist. Always does these amazing work. So shall we put these together, shall we? 1, 2, 3. So there you go. Looks really stunning there. You've got the David Tennant as a particular character, which is something we're going to have to talk about. You might have heard with me with certain episodes in Series 3 that in those episodes, those were David Tennant's best performance as the Doctor. But this story has his best performance in the series. How does that even make any lick of sense? It makes sense in the story, trust me on this. There you go, that's you got the family of blood there. You got Martha Jones and the maiden, I can't remember what her name is, the matron. There you go. Here's the spine, if anyone's interested. I love the greenness of it. It also ties in with the official vanilla release, so that's kind of cool. And here's the back, which kind of gives it away that it's not one of mine. And I've also put down, also includes the episode, and in large capital letters, Blink! Because Blink is a very popular story here. The other episode, Shadow of a Doubt, was actually a lockdown special during the years of 2020, and I don't know what the situation is when this vlog airs, but part of 2021, UK was under lockdown because of COVID-19, and a bunch of awesome Doctor Who fans got together and started making some progress. And when they did the tweet along for this story, Paul Cornell actually wrote 3 original stories. 2 of them we're not going to tackle yet because they deal with the 13th Doctor, but the one that we're going to be tackling with, which is a sequel of this episode. Usually they make them as a sort of prequel, but this is actually now a sequel, and it actually features Paul Cornell's popular character from the Virgin New Adventures, Bernice Summerfield, interacting with this version of stories. So that's kind of interesting. But that's a sequel, so we're going to leave that to the end. But for now, let's talk about human nature and the family of blood, because, oh my boy, there's a lot to talk about. I don't know if I'm going to talk about everything I want to talk about, but I will try and skim it, because this is 2 episodes long and a lot happens in it. But yeah, the story kicks off, the pre-credit sequence to the first episode, Human Nature, is very well done. We're basically caught up in this action scene, and things have taken a very serious turn. The creatures that are chasing them can trace them throughout all of space and time. There's no way to escape, and the Doctor is basically forced to do something as he picks up this watch, and he tells Martha, we see this POV of his point of view, it's like, Martha, this, you trust me, don't you? Because what I need you to do, I need like your full support in this. You need to be like my eyes and ears. And then suddenly, John Smith, played by David Tennant, wakes up in a 1913, is it 1913? Yeah, 1913 England, British upper class school, I don't know, boarding school, in a boys' boarding school. And this is a human who looks exactly like the Doctor, and he seems to be having the Doctor and Martha's adventures as a dream. And his maiden walks in, Martha Jones, and John Smith basically describes that he has these dreams, that he's this traveller, and she was in the dream as well, which is really strange. And Martha is like, what a imagination you've got there, and the Doctor, and John Smith is like, and we were in the future as well, and she's like, well, I know that's not true. And she gives them the newspaper. It's 1913, the year of my Lord. And so the Doctor's like, John Smith is like, well, that sets me up. I am completely human, leading into our credit scenes. So this is like the main aspect of the story. The Doctor as a character is hardly in this adventure. One could argue that this is a Doctor-light adventure because the Doctor himself as a character hardly appears. Throughout this adventure, David Tennant is playing John Smith, a human character who's having dreams of the Doctor and who is also fallen in love, having a relationship with this matron who works there, and also has these like awkward moments with Martha as well. And is teaching the school how to use firearms because they're preparing for war, not knowing that next year's the start of World War One, and so that is like a big event. Of course, it is. And so, what makes this story so well delivered is I feel like with a great example is actually 42. 42 is full of action, it's full of suspense, it's full of everything that you need in a Doctor Who story. But because if it's only one episode, we don't allow for those smaller moments, those slower moments. This story being a two-parter is made in a way where those stories where it's like, I wish it was two-parter, it's made like this, where we have enough action, enough intrigue to keep the audience going. It's like, how the hell is the Doctor not the Doctor in this? What's going on? But we allow for some really heavy character development, and John Smith is such a human. He is such your average, every guy schoolteacher who's fallen in love, connecting with this character. And the relationship here is what is like the weight of the story. It's like, especially like near the end of The Family of Blood, the weight of the story is heavily reliant on this character dynamic. If this relationship failed in terms of audience intrigue, then the entire story falls flat. But luckily, the bare bones of this story are just as meaty as the rest of the adventure. The romance here is so well executed, is so well delivered. It's not overplayed, it's not underplayed, it's played just right that you do genuinely believe this is a couple that are falling in love, despite there's this mysterious aspect about John Smith and how these dreams keep coming up and there's this fantasy. We as an audience quickly learn that the Doctor is some sort or is real from this canonical viewpoint. Martha goes into the TARDIS. We have this really gorgeous scene with Murray Gold's music. I can't remember what the track is called, but it's on the CD. The sorry, I really like that piece of music. And Martha watches the clip of the Doctor, like giving her all these instructions, and we learn through flashbacks that to hide himself from this very vicious alien creature that feeds off Time Lords, he actually converted himself into a human, and he's asked Martha to basically look after him. The Doctor has basically rewritten a small piece of time to fit himself into this canon, into this segment of time. And so Martha has basically got to look after the Doctor and open up this watch that the Doctor has, only after the enemy that we don't know at the moment is we're chasing them, and that's one of the big aspects of this story. Is that Martha's trying to keep everyone hidden. But what makes this story really work is that Martha does a fantastic job here at keeping the cool, and she befriends this other maid who works there, this really cheeky lady who quickly gets possessed by the family, and through the family learn about Martha and the Doctor and all that. So in a way, Martha's doing such a fantastic job, but everything goes wrong for them. Meaning that the family the villains of the piece quickly know what they need to know and puts everyone in danger, meaning that the Doctor's plan was a complete failure and puts everyone in jeopardy. But what was really great is that this plot is slowly developed throughout the time as we slowly get moments of character beats. Martha's slowly learning about this relationship between John Smith and the matron, and she doesn't know what to do. There's a scene where she's like, you didn't tell me about the rules of what to do if you fell in love. You had to fall in love with a woman, but it wasn't me. That is one of those scenes which really indicates, like there's no way about it. That is implying that Martha loves the Doctor in a romantic sense. I'm not a fan of that, but it's only one scene in this adventure. There is another scene later on, but you can interpret it that as, she just really cares for him. But anyway, so yeah, that's mainly the story in part one. It's just setting up these characters. There's not really much of a plot there, just setting up the pieces for part two. But the pieces it does move leads us into a very interesting dynamic. So this is where a great time we get to talk about the villains. The villains start off really mysteriously, and it reminds me a lot of the early chapters of the novel World of the Wars. No, War of the Worlds, sorry. My brain scrambled there. And they possess this young man, this old man, Martha's friend, and a little girl as well. They actually take over and technically kill this girl so that they can have a body. And this is the family of blood, with sister of mine, brother of mine, mother of mine, and father of mine, each possessing these bodies. And the main lead, the main villain, the leader, shall we say, is son of mine. And what a performance! That is one of the best villain performances in the whole of Doctor Who. Yes, it is played way over the top with this constant stare, this smirk on his face, and he's just clearly enjoying the fact that he is causing so much misery for everyone around him. But just the enjoyment, the scumminess of him just elevates every scene he's in. And you want to know a fun fact about the actor who plays him? He is the great-grandson of Charles Dickens. Yes, that is true. That's a true story. His great-grandfather is a character in Series 1 of Doctor Who. Not a lot of people can say that. That is just absolutely mental. That is just so cool. And he does this fantastic performance here. And I can't really describe it. It's just so... I think it's the way the directing works with his over-the-top performance, with him constantly staring like this. He's got this smirk on his mouth, and they do the whole creepy in unison, like they're sniffing out the Time Lord energy. They basically, in terms of that, really, there's not really much to talk about in part one, because it's mainly setting up the pieces. I will have to state about the book. The book is the journal in which John Smith keeps. He basically writes down all of his dreams and his fantasies. And here we get drawings. Specifically drawings of the Doctor. Specifically drawings of the Doctor's previous incarnations. There could be more, but in the actual story itself, I've noticed the 1st, the 7th, and the 8th Doctor. That is just so awesome. And what makes this very important is its 8th Doctor's cameo. Because during the time when the new series was arrived, there was this whole question on whether it was canonical with the classic series, and are we considering the new the TV movie as canon, or Scream of the Shulker as canon? We don't know. Then Sarah Jane came along, and that's like, right, the classic series is canon. But here, it establishes that in terms of the revived series of Doctor Who, the TV movie Paul McGann's Doctor is canon. And I'm so happy that that is the case, because Paul McGann, especially in his Big Finish audio dramas, is such a fantastic actor. So, hooray! This story says, hooray! Paul McGann is canon. Shut the hell up. And this relationship between with John Smith and the matron, and John Smith's friendship with Martha gets probably puts one of the best cliffhangers of the revived series. Easily the best cliffhanger. Oh, actually, the one in Utopia is really good. Wow, I just realised that this series has just so many great cliffhangers. Series 3, this is like easily one of the best cliffhangers. I can't actually put my finger on like which one is the best cliffhanger of Series 3. They're all really good. But anyway, and basically the family of blood have tracked John Smith to this party, and Martha basically realises, right, the monsters are after them, so she tries to find the watch, but the watch is missing, and so Martha goes to the party because John Smith is there and is trying to like wake up the Doctor's consciousness. But we know as an audience viewer that the only way to wake up the Doctor's consciousness is by the watch. Without it, he is just John Smith. But the aliens don't know that. So they basically try scaring him into bringing back his Time Lord persona. And so what they do is that they basically held the matron and Martha Jones as prisoners, and they make a deal. Unless you turn human, we'll kill one of them. But it's your choice. Who should we kill? The friend or the lover? And it's intense. And it's so intense because usually at these moments it's like, right, we know the Doctor's going to do something clever, something amazing to get himself out of the situation. There's only one issue. The Doctor is not here. This is the John Smith story. This is a human with only human intelligence and human weaknesses. He's a bit of a coward in some senses. I mean, he's still very brave. He mentions a lot of like brave moments, and but he still has like these awkward beats. And it like throughout this episode, he tries to ask the matron out to the dance, but he always stumbles on his words and stuff. So this is a human. This is a human who is believed to be the Doctor, and he has to pick between friend or lover for something which he basically cannot give them. Like, how do you resolve that? And that is such an intense scene. Throughout the episode, we also get introduced to this boy. I can't remember the boy's name. That kid has been in a lot of things. Nanny McPhee, Game of Thrones. He's actually one of the Phineas and Ferbs. Bet you didn't know that. But anyway, he has stolen the watch, and every time he opens it, the family of blood can sense it. And looking into it, he can feel the Doctor's consciousness, and he basically communicates with the Doctor, and the Doctor's like telling him to like keep him hidden, keep him safe from the family. And so in the family of blood, it's resolved when the boy basically opens the watch for a nanosecond, distracting them, and Martha actually, the badass as she is, without any help of the Doctor, turns the situation around. So she's actually got the mother of mine as a prisoner, and basically helps the villains up for ransom to free everybody before she can escape. And that is just one so really cool Martha moment. That is so cool, so awesome, and just Martha Jones, man. Martha bloody Jones. And so part 2 is really where most of the action and the scenes and suspense come from. As Martha, I'll only really talk glimpses of episode 2 because a lot goes on, but I really just want to talk about like the main meat of the story, and that is Martha trying to convince John Smith that A, the Doctor is real, and B, he is the Doctor, and C, he needs to become the Doctor because he's the only one who can defeat this threat. Like, the Doctor's hiding is useless at the moment. The only way they have a chance is for the Doctor to gain his intelligence and outsmart them and outmaneuver them. And slowly, like, throughout the story, like, John Smith is just like, first he's completely reluctant to even believe in the Doctor. He's like, the Doctor's just this fairy tale. He's just a fictional character until he sees the TARDIS and he kind of realises, like, oh my god, I'm the Doctor and John Smith is this fictional persona. And the scene then takes him to this small house where that boy then reunites with them and gives them the watch. And we get this really, really iconic speech in which the boy basically is like, he knows about the Doctor because he's felt him in the watch. And he gives this like, the description of the Doctor, and it's one of those things which constantly plays in trailers, both in official and fan-made, where it's like, he is the fire and the ice, and he can see the turn of eternity, or something like that, as John Smith is basically trying to tell him to shut up. He doesn't want to think about it. He doesn't want us to see this. And what's really great is that usually in this kind of situation, we'll have the whole characters kind of have like a semi-breakdown and then realise and open it up. But no, John Smith completely breaks down. And it's like, there's a moment in which, like, he asks Martha, it's like, what happens to him? Like, when the Doctor returns, what happens to him? What happens to John Smith? And Martha doesn't know. Martha has no clue what's going to happen to John Smith. And it's like, you're basically asking me to kill myself to resurrect the Doctor. And this Doctor, he knows nothing about love. He knows nothing about the personal struggles. He'll just be this wanderer, this lonely warrior who takes up companions to time because he's just simply so alone and so miserable. But here's John Smith. He has a chance to be happy with the matron, with this thing. But you're asking him to kill himself to let this lonely man be resurrected. Like, what kind of a life is that? What kind of a sacrifice is that? And, like, this is what I mean. David Tennant's best performance in the series by a long shot. He's done some really great work as the Doctor, but nothing tops his performance as John Smith. Like, it is such a human, like, when we realize, like, when we click, it's like, oh wait, if he does this, he's going to die. Like, is he ready to die? I wouldn't be ready to die in that situation. And he basically is breaking down. He's like, I don't know if I can do that. I'm not strong enough. I'm not a true man. I'm a coward. And I want to have this happy life. Where's my happy ending? Where's my thing? But, like, Martha is like, I'm sorry, but we need the Doctor. There's no chance. There's no hope. And the matron is like, can we have some time alone? We get this absolutely beautiful moment. It doesn't really make much sense. Actually, it does kind of, because it's clearly indicated that the Doctor is kind of conscious in the clock, in the watch. They both hold on to the watch, and they basically see a future in which John Smith is living this life of romance, and they are happy. They have kids. They grow old together. They get married, and it's such a human, happy life together. And John, that is supposed to kind of encourage him. Like, it's like, this is the life he would have had, but now it's time, like, thing. But John Smith kind of sees this as like we could have that, but now you're telling me to give that up. And the matron is kind of like, that's the life we could have had, but we need the doctor. It's taken away from us. There's no chance. And John Smith is just like, the doctor will never love you like I would. And there's a moment then in which she's like, if he's not you, I don't want him to love me like you do. And so we then cut into the next scene in which the aliens are on their spaceship, and John Smith arrives acting all cowardly. He's nervous and he starts pressing buttons on the wall, and he basically is like, right, I've made my choice, you can have the watch. And they pick up the watch and they're like, don't think this will save your life, and they push him into more switches. They open the clock, nothing. They've been tricked. And John Smith starts talking all doctory as he puts the specs on. The doctor is back in business. And it turns out those times where he was knocking down switches, they weren't accidents. He did that on purpose to blow him up. And so the story ends really with the explosion of the ship. And we get probably one of the most iconic endings to any Doctor Who story, as we get this monologue from Son of Mine as he basically realises that when the Doctor was running from them, it wasn't because he was scared, he was frightened. This is a Time Lord, the last of the Time Lords. He has fought alien creatures, monsters, gods, deities. He didn't run away because he was scared, because he was frightened, because he's afraid that he would lose to these creatures. He ran away from them because it was the kindest option. But one by one, he sends them in a way, makes them an immortal, but in a way which they are constantly in agony. What happens to Mother of Mine? Oh, Mother of Mine gets sucked into a black hole for eternity. She basically gets biscuitified. The father gets locked in a dwarf star alloy, imprisoned for all eternity. The son gets basically, they explain like he's like frozen in time, and he lives his remaining life as like a scarecrow for all eternity in a way. But the most important one for us is Daughter of Mine. She gets trapped in a mirror, every mirror, and it is described that the Doctor meets her every month, every year, I can't remember, just to check up on her. And she is the entity. Do you know when you look in a mirror and you kind of get the feeling that you've just spotted something? You turn around and there's nothing there. Well, this story implies that that image that you see is actually Daughter of Mine. And the shots, the scenery, the way David Tennant looks into the camera with fire and rage really fuels this energy. We also get a scene of the Doctor go into the matron, and he kind of asks her to be his companion, and he kind of understands. We kind of get the feeling that John Smith is kind of there. He kind of remembers being John Smith, and he says stuff that's like he can still feel those feelings, but the matron denies his request to travel with him, making her the third companion in the revived series to actually deny the Doctor's chance of travelling. The 10th Doctor, anyway. Sarah Jane was asked to return, but she didn't. Donna refused, but then later on in the Doctor Who series she will return. And now the matron. And we have that boy then who took the watch, and he, throughout the episode, he's been having these flash forwards then of World War One, thanks to he has like this sixth sense, shall we say. We see them as grown like really old, and we have a lovely scene of like a memorial to everybody who died during World War One and World War Two, and the Doctor and Martha are there with poppies on, and that's how our story ends. So that's Human Nature and the Family of Blood. But before we finish it off, let's talk about Shadow of a Doubt. Not really much to say there. Bernice Summerfield starts interacting with Daughter of Mine after she's found a mysterious mirror in some certain caves or something, and she basically learns that this girl has been communicating with the Doctor throughout many of their lives, both in the past and in the future. Like, Daughter of Mine mentions that this traveller has sometimes been a boy and sometimes been a girl. Bernice mentions that she does remember in her timeline a really scary girl with a balloon trapped in a mirror, but in this girl, she seems to be a lot more innocent, a lot more, a lot less like a monster, a lot more forthcoming, shall we say, implying that this is the TV counterpart. And Daughter of Mine also explains like all the different incarnations she has met, and that one of them is actually the same Doctor as Bernie Summerfield, the Seventh Doctor. So the Seventh Doctor is aware of Daughter of Mine in this incarnation. They also mention an Richard Crack Doctor, which is actually a reference to Scream of the Shulker. So Paul Cornell confirmed Scream of the Shulker's canon. Work that one out. There's also references to the Ginger Doctor who thought he was the last. Reference to the novelization of, it's either Battlefield or Remembrance of the Daleks. Also, a bald black woman and a crippled young boy. These are references of future Doctors in the Russell T Davies novelization of Rose. So they are canon, I guess, as well. I don't know. Or they could just be characters pretending to be the Doctor. Don't know how it's implied. And all these Doctors, every time they meet up with Daughter of Mine, they always ask her, does she feel sorry? Does she feel bad for the actions that she had caused, the many murders? And because it's happened so many times, she's had so many replies. And the more common one that she does, which is the one she tells Bernie Summerfield, is how could she feel sorry for something she might have not even done, because she remembers it in so many different ways. This is a story that has happened in her life, that's happened multiple ways. Sometimes she's not even part of the events that she is being blamed for. Basically describing that the events of human nature have splintered off in time, so there's multiple versions. So the novel and the TV story are both canon at the same time. Yes, work that one out. Crack in time, wibbly wobbly, tiny whiny, you know what the crack is, it's a crack. That kind of shenanigans. And Bernice is so disgusted by the fact that, she feels no remorse that she puts the mirror back. She later on goes looking for the mirror, but the mirror has disappeared, which ties into one of the 13th Doctor, Daughter of Mine stories. So there you go, that's Human Nature, Family of Blood, and Shadow of a Doubt. Overall, this is one of the best stories of the Revived series. It's heartwarming, it's action-packed, it's got huge emotional beats. We care for almost every character. The villains are such great villains. And what's really great about this is that usually this is the type of story which will get heavily condensed into one part, and most people would have gone, yeah, it's good, but I wish we had 2 parts so we can have these slow moments, be a little bit more slower and make us care for characters more. And we got this. We got it in a 2-part adventure, showing that the 2-parter is the way to go, in my opinion. This, like, Russell T Davies and Paul Cornell, the decision to adaptate Human Nature for TV with the 10th Doctor and Martha story was such a great idea. Such a perfect combination of writing, producing, directing, cast, that I honestly can't imagine any other version than this. I haven't actually read the novel, but yeah. Also, here's an interesting point. If Target ever do an adaptation of this, then you would have a novelization of a TV story of a novel. That would be really funny. We should get Paul Cornell to do that. Target, if you're listening, adaptate this story, because just to have two different novels would be absolutely hilarious. Shadow of Doubt is actually also pretty good. It's one of the better lockdown videos, and I highly recommend that you watch it. It's very small, it's very sweet, and it's just interesting to see these two characters, the TV version of Daughter of Mine and Bernie Summerfield, played by Lisa Barrowman from the Big Finish audio dramas, interacting with each other is really, really cool. And so, go watch Shadow of a Doubt. So there you go. That's Human Nature, Family of Blood, and Shadow of a Doubt. So join me next time when the tortured team have to look after some people from the past as they get caught up in the rift in time. So I'll see you next time for Out of Time. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!